I'm going to turn it over to Cody Sutton. He's from Stonewater Financial, and he's going to present to us on 10 basic financial steps for special needs caregivers. So,
perfect.
welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all coming today. Honestly, this is probably one of my favorite presentations because it's a little bit of everything all in one. So now that being said, it's going to be kind of like drinking through a fire hose for a little bit of it, but I will try to stay pretty high level on a lot of it because honestly, each of these steps, as we call them, we also break into hour-long presentations. So there's a lot that goes into this, but today really is to kind of give an overarching, like, okay, hey, what, maybe you've heard about special needs trusts or able accounts or all that, kind of give that high-level overview of everything. Okay, a little bit on me. So I do have a brother with special needs, which is kind of why I started my practice working with families like mine. I also serve on the board for the ARC of Texas, which if you guys don't know what that is essentially the biggest advocacy group in Texas, which Texas ranks like 49 out of 54 for resources for our families. So that advocacy is usually a pretty big piece of what we do. But really, our financial planning practice, we focus on working with families with special needs. I have what's called the Chartered Special Needs Consultant designation. Just means I went back to school to understand the tax implications, how all this works, and kind of how it builds into the family's picture. Okay, because most, a typical family, really they have to worry about just a few things going through life of, hey, we got to pay for college, we got to save for our retirement, and we got to, hope that we can leave a legacy, right? Our families, it's drastically different planning. Because now at 18, it's not just, hey, are we going to go to college? It's, what does the workforce look like for us? We might be getting SSI. Do we need guardianship? All those things rolling in. When we step into retirement, we may be planning on a retirement for 3 to 4 people, not just mom and dad, right? So now retirement looks completely different. And the legacy side, we have to have a legacy that's going to provide for that individual as well. Not just, hey, we hope we can leave a legacy, but how do we make sure that we are leaving that legacy, okay? So today's kind of just to dive into a lot of the different things you guys have probably heard of. Before we get started, these 2 documents here, I would say are some of the most important ones. Is everyone on the Texas Medicaid waiver interest lists? Everyone's heard of those? No? Okay. Talk with me after, because these lists essentially are access to resources and therapies and different things that the state does provide. They're a great resource. The bad thing is the waiting lists are, they were saying 14 years, now they're saying 20 years. Okay, now we're working on that with the ARC and trying to shorten those down and everything, but it is better to get on the list so we can get access to those resources as soon as possible. Okay, so if you're not on the list or don't know what they are, let us know. Okay.
We also have a short video that explains what the Medicaid waivers are and kind of breaks that up as to how to get signed up, because one of them you need to call, one of them you need to send an email. And so it kind of breaks those pieces down. And so we can also get that to you as well.
And the second one is the letter of intent. Think of that as kind of the guidebook for your family. We'll dive into that again a little bit more here in a minute, but essentially that is, what does that next guardian need to know? If you're not here tomorrow, what needs to happen? Okay. So really today, hopefully kind of what we're answering is the question that we always get when families come to work with us of what happens when I'm not here. Okay, that's typically the biggest concern for our parents, is just kind of that unknown of, hey, if we don't wake up tomorrow, we get hit by a bus on the way home, what happens? Knowing the short term, hey, what's going to happen, but also, hey, hopefully we do all live happy, long, healthy lives, and then what happens next? Okay. First step sounds simple, but it's probably one of the harder ones, is having a vision for what you want your plan to look like. And by vision, I mean, we call these kind of the 5 most important things to be thinking about. So it's going to be medical, transportation, education, employment, and housing. Really, those 5 things are things we need to understand, okay, when, what's going on with that right now. When our child turns 18, what does that look like? Meaning now we're going to get government resources. What are we going to have to supplement there? But also, okay, hey, again, we're not here. Now what does that look like? If we're looking 20, 30, 40 years down the road, what is that going to look like to the best of our ability? Obviously, things are going to change along the way, but kind of understanding what that looks like along the way, so that when you do start building out a plan or talking with us or talking with anyone, you kind of have a little bit of a dynamic of, hey, we're going to need a lot of support if we're not here, or hey, we just need somebody to come by and check, on a day-to-day basis type of thing. Okay. Second one, building a team. Again, that's a lot of the reason why you guys are here. Understand, okay, what is needed? What do we need to look for? A lot of times that's going to be resources at the school. It's going to be different doctors, kind of health professionals, guidance counselors, all those people, to really make sure that your team is well-rounded and we have everyone on the team. A lot of times that's going to be the guidance counselors, it's going to be some type of financial professional, and it's going to be a special needs attorney. Now, I say a special needs attorney because we want an attorney that knows and understands our picture and the rules around it. Okay, because the legal side around what we do, which again we'll dive into in a minute, is extremely important as well. Okay, meaning we have special needs trusts that one word in the special needs trust can blow up the whole trust. Okay, meaning we lose all of our government benefits. Now, not that an attorney would do it on purpose, but if they put like one word in wrong that essentially gives us access to it, now we're in a bad spot. Okay, so we want someone who works in this area constantly and understands all the dynamics there. Okay. Government benefits. Who is currently receiving SSI for their child? Or is their child receiving SSI, SSDI, anything like that? Okay. This is the fun part. At age 18, has everybody heard of
We've
SSI?
heard of it, but
Okay.
I was just about to learn more about it because my son is just about getting close to that.
Okay, perfect. So, the easiest way to think of SSI, so we'll start on the left-hand side here. So, before your child is 18, they can qualify for SSI based on the family work record, income levels, and asset levels. Okay? Now, for you guys, it doesn't sound like we're in that situation. Once they turn 18, they are their own individual person. Now, we can get that government assistance, which is the SSI side. The important thing with SSI is once we get $1 of SSI, we qualify for Medicaid. Okay, the medical side for a lot of our families is way more important than even the check. Now the check is the SSI portion, that's $967 a month this year. Goes up with inflation every year. But that $967 comes in to the individual to help pay for their needs. Because remember, now they're 18, they're their own individual person. Okay? SSI is really broken up into 3 portions. One portion is rent, one portion is food, and the third is miscellaneous. So deodorants and other things you'll get at the grocery store type thing. All right. The reason they break it up into 3 portions is when you walk into the Social Security office, one of the first questions they ask you is your child paying rent? Most
Yes.
families are, yep.
Yes.
Most
Your
families
answer
are like,
is
well, no,
yes.
they're not. Why would I charge my special needs child rent? If you say no, you lost 1/3 of that check. Okay, so now you're down to 600 and whatever. So we want to have a rental agreement in place so we can maximize that check. Okay, we want to get the full 967, again, so we can obviously get the max amount, but a lot of times we use that in the household to help offset other things that we're probably paying out of pocket for as mom and dad. Okay, now some people are like, well, I don't want to charge rent, why would I do that, and set up this whole thing. Keep in mind, we're setting up for as if you guys are not here. Okay, so even if you're like, well, we don't need the rent money, why would I charge rent? We're really trying to think, 20, 30 years down the road. We want to make sure we're maximizing those benefits because it's a lifelong ability that we can get some of those benefits there. Okay.
Social Security, that piece in itself could be a whole training. So we do have some recordings of that. And then Selena Chacon through the Social Security office is doing a virtual training in December. And so you should have received that information through our newsletter. But if you don't have that, I'll get that information to you. That meeting in itself cannot be recorded. So if that is something that you're super interested in, we can make sure you get that on your calendar, and that's going to be virtual. Okay, but we do have some that are recorded because Cody could talk about this piece for an hour.
Exactly. Yeah. I would say one of the most important things with SSI, like I said, once we get $1 of SSI, we get Medicaid. SSI is a system that's meant to be worked off of. So a lot of times we have families come to us and they're like, well, what if my child's working? What if they're able to work? That's great. Okay. My brother is a great example. He started getting SSI. He started working. We were super excited. He started working his way off. We started realizing that my brother is great at working for like 2 months, and he's just never going back. Okay, he was committed. He was devoted. He was going to go there every single day. After that 2 months, he was done. Okay, well, we didn't let him get completely off of SSI. We let him work up. So there's a little bit of math to it, but the easiest way to think of it: for every $1 you earn, you lose 50 cents of your SSI check. All right. So if we're working and we're making $500 a month, well, hey, that's great. We're building ourselves up, but we're still getting SSI. It's just reduced by 250. Okay. Now we don't want to work ourselves to where we don't get SSI because now we lose the Medicaid portion. Okay. Again, if we're working ourselves off and we see that, hey, this is sustainable, great, let's do it. But we might be in a spot where we want to kind of maintain both for a little while. Okay. On the right-hand side, so this switches over, like everything with the government, they made it very simple to understand. So SSI is what you get at 18. SSDI is based on the parent's Social Security record. But you can qualify for what's called the disabled, or your child can qualify for what's called the Disabled Adult Child Benefit, meaning they can get resources tied to your Social Security check. Now we're switching from SSI to SSDI. We're also switching from Medicaid to Medicare, which is a much better benefit.
That's when the parent starts receiving Social Security,
Yes.
right?
So there are 3 ways that can trigger that switch. The first is you stepping into retirement as the parent. The second is you becoming disabled and claiming your own SSDI. And the third is if you pass. Okay, your child can qualify and get that disabled adult child benefit based on that from those 3 triggering events. Okay, usually it's a bigger check, it's a better benefit. We want to try to make that shift when we step into retirement. Okay, and again, this we could go on for an hour about, so I don't want to go too deep in it, but that's kind of high level the best things to focus on with that. Getting additional resources, again, Texas, we're ranked, it's 48 or 49 out of 50 states. But I will say we have some other partners that we work with up in like the New York area where they're like number 3, and they get all the state provided resources. You know, everything is great up there. But she came down here and saw some of the different resources we have, like if you guys have heard of 29 Acres, Marbridge, My Possibilities, Daymark Living. Most of them are going to be private pay, so they are going to be a little bit more expensive, but some of them do take other resources as well, or they have scholarships and things like that. We went and had her tour some of those facilities, and she's like, this is amazing. It's like going from, you know, a state-supported living center to, I mean, some of these places have their own, you know, beach entry pools and theaters on site and all. It truly is like a community living, kind of like a little gated community where they live with their friends and, you know, everything works great. Okay, so it's a give and a take. It's just understanding what resources we do have here locally, what you need, and kind of how to maximize it from that side. Okay. All right. The legal structure. This is where I said it can get very intricate. I guess is probably the best word for it. There's a lot of different things. Now, not everybody's going to need every document that we put up here. Okay. It's just these are all different things that you want to at least consider as we're going through the process, as we're looking how do we need things structured. Okay, everything from that letter of intent, that's not a legally binding document, but it's a document that we want to have for that next guardian. Okay, guardianship and alternatives, really just making sure that, one, we've listed off who's the successor guardian, but also, do we need guardianship? Okay, we were talking about this before the presentation started. Guardianship, I think, has become a very bad word. in, you know, in school districts and in the news. There's movies about it. There's one on Netflix called I Care a Lot, where essentially the lady goes in, takes guardianship over these elderly folks, and then takes all of their assets. So guardianship has become kind of a bad word, but we're looking at guardianship in a different way. Okay, for my brother, guardianship was the best fit. Because my brother would give the shirt off his back to anyone that asked. Okay, it's just his nature, he'd do anything for anyone. So if somebody walks up to him and says, hey, can you sign this piece of paper so I can get this new car? He's not understanding, okay, I'm co-signing on a loan for a vehicle. He's just like, hey, cool, I hope he takes me, you know, when he goes to the movies, and I get to ride in his car. Okay, that guardianship, that piece of paper protects him from making that unknown mistake. Okay, now there is supported decision making, there's other ways you can go, but the best way to do it is look at the least restrictive options first. So, you know, powers of attorney, supported decision making, and understand how all of them work and kind of what rights it's kind of taking away from the individual before we go for something that is like guardianship and on that side. Okay. Wills, who in here does have their wills in place? Okay. That's actually more than I usually
Great
see.
job.
Yeah. Usually there's like one person in the back that's like, well, I did it online like 20 years ago, so. But wills are extremely important for every family, which, by the way, the national stat is like only 17% of people actually have their wills and everything in place. Wills are very important for everyone. It's extremely important for our families. Because, you know, we'll dive into special needs trust and everything in a minute. If we don't leave our assets the right way to the individual that we're trying to take care of, it can disqualify them from all those government benefits that we just talked about. Okay, because for SSI, for example, the asset limit that they have to stay under to get government benefits is $2,000. Meaning if they have more than $2,000 to their name, that's in, you know, like they have a checking account and a savings account and they started working, so they have a 401k somewhere. If those assets total more than $2,000, SSI is gone. Okay, so we have to leave assets the right way so we don't disqualify ourselves from any of those government benefits. And that's where
hear
the wills,
a lot about, and I'm sure you hear a lot about, like, oh, the grandma
Yes.
passed away and left money to this child, and
Mhm.
it's in this account, and it's $10,000.
and
so
that's
those
honestly, that's one of the worst things is like, you know, grandma does leave the money because, hey, I want to help out, I want to leave $10,000. Well, they leave it to the child in their name. Now that shuts off all the government benefits. Because now we have $10,000 that they need to spend down before we can turn on that SSI check again. Does that make sense?
Sorry,
Yep,
when you
yep.
say money, so even like 529 accounts, like those kind of accounts count?
They do, but there's nuances with it,
Okay.
which I'll dive into that here in a second too. But that's a great question. But yeah, so kind of that legal structure, again, work with an attorney, because we have heard before the people that say, well, my buddy's an attorney, so he's going to draft it up for us. That's great. You know, usually they'll do it for free because you're a friend or something like that. Again, we have seen it to where there's one word. It's support versus supplant government benefits. That one word was switched in a special needs trust, and if they would have signed it and put it all in place and something happened to them, it would have disqualified from all government benefits. So the structure they put in place for the protection would have just blown everything up. So knowing the right attorneys and utilizing the right attorneys is very important there. Okay. All right, perfect. So special needs trust. So there's two types of special needs trust, by the way. The main one that we're going to talk about is the third-party special needs trust. Okay. If we're doing the planning the right way, the only one we need to worry about is the third-party special needs trust. Okay, now the reason it's a third-party special needs trust is because the individual, so again, I'll just use my brother will never be the trustee of his own trust. He will also never receive money from the special needs trust. Okay, so for example, I will be the trustee of my brother's special needs trust. And anything that he needs, I will purchase with the special needs trust. But I'm never going to, like, if he needs a new computer for school or something, I'm not saying, okay, hey, here's $2,000, go grab a new computer. I'm taking the trust, I'm getting the computer, he's getting, it's health support and maintenance of the individual. So that trust is set up for the benefit of the individual, but they're never getting the money from it. Okay, that's how we're making sure we're protecting those government benefits, because we're not giving the actual cash or money inside of the trust to that individual. Okay, that's also the biggest difference of a regular trust and a third-party special needs trust. Like if we just set up a regular trust, he could be the trustee and he could take money out of it if he wanted to. The government sees that and they're like, well, then that's an asset to them. You know, it's just like a checking account if they can do that. So we want to make sure we structure it the right way. That being said, there are things that it can and cannot provide. Again, gotta love the government. There's pros and cons to about everything that they give us, right? So that they created this so that we could have a place to save for the individuals, but they also said, hey, it can't pay for everything. For example, if SSI is paying for rent, well, they're not gonna let the trust subsidize or pay additional to the rent, because now that's seen as a resource. Now it's okay, hey, if there's $100,000 in the trust, why isn't that just paying for all of the rent? Okay, so for example, let's say that, you know, the trust needs to pay rent 1 month because, you know, SSI was backed up or something like that. If the SSI, or if the trust comes in and pays the rent, now we're kind of stepping on the toes of what that SSI check should be paying for. So now it's seen and we're linking that to be a benefit for us. Okay, so there's things that it can and cannot pay for. This is kind of a list of things that a lot of the trusts can pay for. Again, it can pay for a lot. It's just there are kind of those pros and cons. All right. Now, you brought up the 529s. 529s are a great tool for college savings. Okay. Well, what if our kids aren't going to college? Okay. Well, in 2014, the Obama administration created what's called the ABLE account, Achieving a Better Living Experience. Now, this is the only account that our child can have in their name that's not counted against those government benefits. So it is truly a checking account for them. You can even invest the money in there. But again, there's pros and there's cons to it. Okay? So the limit of what we can contribute every year is going to be the gifting limit. So this year I think it's $16,800 or something like that. So from a legacy standpoint, the ABLE account is not great for us to, hey, we're going to just leave, you know, all of our assets to that for our child. Okay. With the ABLE account, there's what's called a Medicaid clawback provision. Okay. That means if we have $50,000 in the ABLE account and our child passes away, and Medicaid has spent $30,000 on our child over their lifetime, Medicaid has first right to go into the ABLE account and reimburse themselves that $30,000. Okay, so we really don't like to see that, hey, we're piling up a lot of money in the ABLE account, because that's just money we're going to give back. Okay, so the ABLE account, it's a great tool. The best thing, because we always get asked, all right, which one should I have? Should I do the special needs trust? Should I do the ABLE account? Really, we should be using them both to their strengths. Okay, so if we know the ABLE account can pay for almost anything, the special needs trust can fund the ABLE account. So if we do need to pay rent, well, that can't come from the special needs trust, but it can come from the ABLE account. So we take the money from the special needs trust, fund the ABLE account, now we can spend that however we want. Does that make sense? So it's kind of utilizing both tools to their strengths while we're not, you know, piling up money inside of that ABLE account. You know, I would rather see it that we have $5,000 in the ABLE account, and if it drops down to $1,000, hey, let's move $4,000 from the trust over. That way it's kind of creating a spending account almost, but we're not piling up a lot of assets in there. Now, the reason I brought up the 529, the ABLE account was actually written off of the 529 tax code. So it's the 529A. The benefit for that, if we do have a 529 that we've been saving into, putting money into, now we can roll that over into the ABLE account. Okay, so we move that over. Now, instead of using it on higher education and kind of limiting ourselves down to what a 529 can pay for, now we've opened the door to essentially anything that benefits our child, we can pay out of the ABLE account. All right?
Can the ABLE account have more than the $2,000 threshold?
It can. So the ABLE account, so we can fund it with like the 16,800 or whatever it is every single year. It does not affect government benefits until we hit $100,000. Then the SSI check stops, but we still don't lose Medicaid. Right? Now, I would advise that we just don't get anywhere near 100,000. But if you have a big 529 that you're just having to move over and all that, then yes, moving it into the 529 or the ABLE account is still a better move there.
One quick question on
Yeah.
ABLE account. So, 529 is only apply when kids goes to the college.
Yes.
So ABLE account has the same criteria?
It can, yes. So the ABLE account, think of it as we move the 529 into the ABLE account. Now there's almost no restrictions. The government was very open with their language, mainly because they know the $2,000 asset limit is ridiculous. So instead of fixing that problem, they created us a loophole. So now we have the ABLE account, and their only rules are it has to something that benefits the child with special needs. Okay, so I mean that is a huge range of whatever you want to call it, but that's kind of our limitation there.
But there is no fine, right? Because
No.
Okay,
Mm-mm.
to switching the accounts.
Yep, just moving it over. Yep, just rolling it into that ABLE account.
So if your child is maybe gonna go to community college or UNT has Elevate, thank you. I'm like, I'm gonna say the wrong one. So, which that's an amazing program. If you don't know about that, we'll get you more information about that because that's an awesome program. But if you're thinking, oh, my child might possibly go into that program, I have a 529, but I'm unsure. The ABLE account you could use to do that, or maybe that's not their action plan and they want to do something different.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So now the next question we always get is, okay, well, hey, how or when should I start funding the special needs trust? Right? Because some people in your minds right now, you might be running the math already of, okay, if I start saving this much, I can have this much crammed in here, all that. The best way to think of it right now is you are the special needs trust. Anything that the trust would provide, you're helping your child with the education, employment, everything, it's coming out of your pocket already. We don't really want to tie it up into a trust until we need to. The trust is really meant to replace you. So when you're no longer here, that's when we need that trust to back us up. The good thing with that too is that's when we want to fund it. It's also the most efficient time that we can fund it. Okay? Tax rates on trusts, including special needs trusts, once we hit $14,000 of income from the trust, we're in the 37% tax bracket. So, which that's obviously way faster than our individual rates. I think you have to be over like 500,000 before we hit 37 on our individual side. So that's where how do we fund it and what do we put in the trust becomes very, very important. Okay. So first thing, when we start talking about how much do we want to fund the trust with, we always call it the magic number, but we help with the calculation of, hey, what is that magic number that we need to go into the trust that's going to take care of that individual for the rest of their life? Okay, for example, my parents, we started building out and looking at, okay, well, what do we need to go in there? And my brother's a very happy person. As long as he's got his Dr. Pepper and his Cowboys on Sunday, he's a pretty happy camper. More money's not going to make him happier. Okay, so having that magic number for him was, hey, this is what's needed to take care of him. We'll say it's $1 million. $1 million going into that trust is what he needs. Okay? So, if my parents pass away and they have $1,001,001, he's got $1 million legacy, or he's got $1 million going into his trust, I'm getting $1. Okay? Now that's backwards from the way you guys are probably all thinking where, hey, we need to do 50-50, everything needs to be equal, however, but when my dad sat me down, we started really talking about it, looking at it, the best thing he'd give me was not having that financial burden on me and my family. Making sure that he was always taken care of. Now at the same time, if my parents pass away with $10 million, more money's not making him happier, so $1 million is going into his trust and $9 million is going to me. Okay, so I only say that so that, equal's not always equal when we do the planning. It's more, hey, how can we make sure that that trust is funded? There is no financial burden on anyone anyone else, whether it's a sibling or an aunt or an uncle or whoever's going to be that next caregiver or guardian, how do we make sure that trust is funded the right way? Okay, so once we have that magic number, now we start looking at, okay, how do we want to fund that? Because we just said that, hey, if we hit over $14,000 of income in that trust, we're in the 37% tax bracket. What that means is if we leave a 401k into the special needs trust, let's say we leave $1 million in a 401k into that trust, you think you've done great, hey, cool, I've met my magic number, there we go. Really, we only left about $600,000 in there of spending power. Because about $400,000 of that is going to go to taxes. Because that 401k has never been taxed before. Okay, so now we start looking at, okay, it's not just how do we leave the asset in there, how do we leave it in there efficiently? So we want money that hasn't been taxed. We want money that has been taxed. So think Roth accounts or brokerage accounts or life insurance funds, all those types of things where, hey, it's going in $1 million, like $1 million of life insurance money is $1 million going into the trust. Okay, so that's $1 million of spending power we have in there. Okay, $1 million from a Roth account. Well, hey, now that's money that it's already been taxed, so we're not going to get taxed again on it. That's $1 million of spending power for that trust. Okay, so that's where the strategy comes in of how do we make sure that everything is done. Plus, we want to look at all of those assets anyway, because not everything is going to flow through the will. Most people think, okay, I've got my will, I've got my trust, I'm good to go, everything's going to do exactly what I need it to. Everything that has a beneficiary tied to it, so think 401k, life insurance, IRAs, transfer on death accounts, all of those other accounts, they don't flow through the will. Okay, so where the biggest mistake that we see a lot of times is a family comes in, they've taken care of everything, they're good. But dad's been working at the same job for 30 years, and in his beneficiaries, when he first started for his 401k, he just put, hey, it's going to go to my wife, and then it's going to go to my kids equally. Okay? If you put it to kids equally, the court system, the beneficiaries don't say, oh, well, he meant for that to be to one kid in their name and one kid in the trust. They disperse the money straight out like it says. Okay, so that 401k is going to go to the kids by name if something happens to mom and dad. Now, if you have a 401k and you've been there for 30 years, it's probably more than $2,000. So, I would say, I hope it was anyway, but now we're putting them over that asset limit. So that's just all those little things that we have to dive in and make sure that we're looking at the full picture so that we can capture all of those things that could just be a gotcha later. Does that make sense? Yes?
I mean, if I understood correctly, if you have a bill and if you have like, let's say retirement account, and let us say in the retirement account, we put the beneficiaries like, let's say 1, 2, 3 kids,
Mhm.
let us suppose. And in the bill, we put it to somebody, going to somebody. So you mean to say whatever that kept the beneficiaries on the account will take it, residence, then will, right?
Yep, so it's like if you have your IRA over here and you have your will over here, your will is going to control like your house, your bank accounts, your cars, all of those types of assets. But if you have your 401k sitting over here, and let's say you pass away, all of these assets are going to flow through the will. The 401k has its own beneficiaries. So it's going to flow wherever you said it's going to go. It doesn't go by what the will says.
So even for checking accounts and all of the stuff, any account or only for only?
Anything that you have put a beneficiary on. So
Okay.
most checking accounts are going to flow through the will, unless you have on the checking account, like there are certain checking accounts that you can put a transfer on death clause, where you can say it's going to go here instead of following the will.
How about life insurance?
You would have to go change your beneficiaries because all life insurance is going to have a beneficiary.
Oh, so it will not flow through will?
It will not flow through the will, unless and this is where it gets technical. If you put through your estate, so if you passed away and you put your estate as the beneficiary, then it would flow to the will. But most people aren't going to do that. It's going to be spouse or kids or whoever it is. So, yeah, great question. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, yep, and then guardianship and alternatives, kind of like we talked about, understanding what all of it is, and again, we want to look for the least restrictive option, but don't let any of them scare you. I guess is probably the best thing. I don't want to scare you from shying away from supported decision making. I also don't want to push you to it. It's very dependent on your family. Okay, I said guardianship was the best fit for my family and my brother. That could be completely different for your family, right? It's very dependent on how your child is, what capabilities they have, their understanding, and we don't have to have full guardianship. Okay, let's say that our child has a great understanding of the dollar, can pay their own bills, can do all of that, but if they go to the doctor's office and they have to have a surgery, but it's going to require them to get a shot, and the child's like, nope, not doing that, I'm scared of needles. That's probably where we need some healthcare guardianship or kind of conservatorship there to make sure that we're helping them through those decisions. Okay? Now, guardianship is also important because at age 18, remember, they are their own individual now. So, if we walk into a doctor's office on your child's 18th birthday and your kid's having a bad day and says, Mom, get out of here, I don't want you in here, doctor has to listen to that individual. They are 18 years old, they are their own person. Same way in an ARD meeting. If you don't have guardianship, now, again, a lot of the doctors will understand and try to help through the situation, but at the end of the day, it's a legal matter. The doctor would have to listen. Okay?
If you have like a portal, so you go to the doctor's office and you have like a portal, right? And you're trying to communicate. On your child's 18th birthday, your access to that's going to go away. And your child's going to have their own. Can they communicate those pieces? I need a copy of my child's FIE or IEP. Can your child request that? So those are the kinds of things. And guardianship, Cody did a separate, it was guardianship and I can't remember, it was 2 different topics.
Yeah,
So I will link that if you want to know more about guardianship. And then when you're talking about attorney, Adrian Grace also did one. Adrian Grace is an attorney up in Frisco. Capella ISD does not endorse a specific lawyers, specific financial planners, but we do know that these are people in the community that have come and supported us here, supported you. And so there is one that Adrian Grace did on that as well. So I will link all of those when you get that Parent Square post so you can watch all of those pieces, because guardianship was kind of its own whole training.
Yes.
So
Yeah, definitely.
those can be some more information there. So
I mean, maybe I'm confused, like, if the child reaches 18, right, so he becomes individual. So the guardian, if you don't write a guardianship, so even the mom and dad will lose that, say?
Yeah, they lose their say.
Okay, so.
Because at age 18, they are their own individual. So now they can make their own decisions. They can go buy their own car. They can sign their own documents. Age 18 is a big turning point for our families. Not just because of SSI and Medicaid and getting all that, but also with guardianship and making sure we have the right structure there.
Okay, so that means even like parents can turn it as a guardianship, right, after 18? Is that?
Parents, yes, parents can become guardian at age 18. Best time if guardianship is the path you're going, 17 and a half is the best time to start that process with an attorney. Okay? Because it takes about 6 months to get on the attorney's calendar, to get all the documents in place, to get a court date, because you will have an attorney trying to get a guardianship. Your child will also be appointed an attorney ad litem from the court. Okay? So they will be served papers. It is a very, it's not a scary process. I don't want to make it sound like that, but it is a process you have to go through, and it's a legal process. So, and you'll have people come and check out the house, make sure you're a suitable guardian, all of those types of things. So having that 6-month run-up time is usually pretty good to start that process.
So quick question on that follow-up question. So can you have multiple guardians for the?
You can, yes, you can be co-guardians. So like mom and dad can be co-guardians.
Okay,
And what I would always say is always have like a successor guardian as well.
okay,
Oh, and especially when we start looking at like our will planning, all that legal side, we like to be at least 3 people deep on
Okay.
the executor, the trustee of the trust, and the guardians. Because if something happens to that person that's in line behind you, or if they just can't do it at this, maybe they're going through their own life struggles and they can't take on being guardian right now.
okay.
It's not something they're forced to do because their name is next on the list.
Gotcha.
They could just send it to the next person. So we like to see at least 3 backups.
So it
behind
has
it.
to be local or it can be out of state somewhere?
Yeah, that's up to you.
Okay, so
Mhm.
they can be anywhere.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
So letter of intent, this is kind of like I talked about, and we have a template, I guess you could say, that you guys can go off of if you want to. The letter of intent is not a legally binding document by any means. It is more of the guidebook for if something happens to us. Okay, it's our daily routine. It is doctors we do and don't like. It's our school counselors. It's numbers to call if something happens. It's really to make sure that everything that is in your child's routine stays as close as possible. Okay, and I say that because if the parents are gone, it's probably already going to be one of the hardest times in their lives. Okay, the worst thing we want to do is now completely throw off routine, because typically routine is very important for our families. So like my brother, every Friday, he goes to his horse riding therapy. If he misses that therapy, because it's with all his buddies, it's on this ranch, it's, they ride horses and have fun all day. If he misses that, the whole next week is ruined. It's just not a good time for anybody. I know that, my family knows that, we've let people know, but if something happened to all of us and he didn't do that, and he had to go live with my uncle who's behind me as guardian, he wouldn't get that, and they probably wouldn't understand why he's having such a hard time. On top of everything changing, on top of moving, now he's losing like the one staple. So those are the types of things we want to see in the letter of intent, the things that are like, hey, this is one of the biggest game changers in our picture. Okay, so all of that should go into that letter of intent. I can get you guys a template of that if you guys want as well. And it's always evolving. It's not gonna be a static, you complete it one day and it's good forever. We're gonna add on different things, we're gonna make changes as we go. The family meeting, this is, again, once we've built the plan, everything's in a good spot, now we know what we wanna do, let's let people know if they're in the plan. The one thing that we see is that it's, oh yeah, the sibling will take care of it, or Uncle so-and-so will take care of this part and that, and we're okay, cool, so they know what to do, who to call, and they're like, oh, maybe not. So the family meeting, this can be as simple as, like, for my dad, it was just calling his brother and just say, hey, you're behind Cody. If something were to ever happen to all 3 of us, you would take over. Are you okay with that? So a phone call sometimes is good. Sometimes we have families come into our office, we sit around the big conference room table, we talk about everybody's role, and then I like to do a fire drill. Meaning, now we pull mom and dad out of the room. It's like, cool, they got hit by a bus on the way home. What's the first call? And it's kind of interesting to see everybody's face like, oh, it makes it real. Okay, because now it's, okay, something did happen, what do we do? And most of the time it's like, well, I think we would call this person or do that. And so it makes people really kind of think through, okay, if something happens, we need to call so-and-so and make sure they know. Then we need to do this, then we need to orchestrate this. It kind of puts things in a whole different dynamic than, somebody just being friendly and, oh yeah, I could take care of that, or I could be trustee of the trust, I'll help manage that. It makes it real for them. It lets them know, like, hey, there are calls we need to make. There's people we're gonna have to go talk to. We have to actually understand what we can pay for from the trust. All those different types of things. Okay. If you're sitting there thinking, okay, now where do we even get started? This is a whole lot. I told you it was gonna be like drinking through a fire hose. Hopefully it wasn't too bad, but I would say the first 2 places to start, if you haven't started contacting an attorney, to get at least the wills and the trusts. Now, one caveat to this now, I will say, a lot of group, like your group benefits, we are noticing more and more are bringing in like either a MetLife legal plan or a couple legal plans that you can just add on for like $20 a month, and you can actually get special needs trusts and wills and everything through there. Okay, that's a much more affordable alternative to going to an attorney and sitting down and going through that process. I still think it's very important to speak with an attorney, but if nothing else, to just get a basic will and trust in place, starting online is great. If you want to sit down with us or someone like us, that's a good step as well. Just make sure that, hey, all of these things, as you've seen, there's a lot of little gotchas kind of mixed in there. We want to make sure that everything is lined out perfectly. We work on what we call a holistic planning side, where we come in and we're essentially on your team with everything we do. We're not just sitting down and saying, hey, I think we can get you a little bit better return on this investment account. We look at your plan as, hey, we want to make sure that everything is structured the right way because we know all the little gotchas. We know what can slow things down or completely blow up the plan. So we'll help you kind of put everything in place along the way. Does that make sense? So, if you guys don't mind completing the survey for me, just let me know how I did. If you want to contact us, our contact information is down there. We'll also shoot you a follow-up email. I promise we don't blow you guys up with a lot of junk or anything. It's just, hey, if you want to schedule a consultation, we're happy to do it. But just let me know how I did. If there's anything else you guys want to hear about, there's a note section at the bottom of this survey as well. Let us know if it's like, hey, we need a whole hour on special needs trusts or ABLE accounts or whatever it is. I'm happy to come back and do that. But other than that, we're here to be a resource for you guys. Anything that we can do, reach out to us, schedule a meeting. Happy to have that conversation.